Hello and welcome to the channel. Please join me on a nostalgic journey as we recap the storylines of the games I found the most captivating. We're going to be diving headfirst into one of my all-time favourite franchises and one of the Xbox's flagship series, Halo. For this series, we'll be covering each of the Halo games in chronological order rather than release order, which brings us to the first entry, Halo Wars, originally released in 2009 on the Xbox 360. Now, with a quick detour just to say this video will contain spoilers for the whole story of Halo Wars, let's get into it. The story opens with Captain Cutter aboard the UNSC ship Spirit of Fire, giving a captain's log dated February 4th, 2531. Cutter is recalling the last 5 years of the war to reclaim Harvest. Although the war started well, the quick win that the UNSC hoped for was turned into 5 years of hell, but the planet has now been retaken. Roughly 20 years before the events of Halo, so the Halo event featuring Master Chief, landing crafts depart the Spirit of Fire, which is in orbit above Harvest, and descend towards the planet. Cutter discusses the situation with the Spirit of Fire AI Serena and orders for weapons to be brought online as the Covenant don't yet appreciate that Harvest is back under UNSC control. As Professor Anders enters the bridge to speak with Cutter, Sergeant Forge reports from the planet's surface that there is still a heavy Covenant presence on the ground and they've found something in the ice. Anders chimes in as scans confirm that there is some kind of structure down there. Cutter informs the team that they need to get Alpha Base operational and take control of the site. Forge warns Anders against joining them on the surface so soon. Down on the planet, Forge is approaching Alpha Base and, following some advice from Serena, agrees to round up the retreating soldiers for a counter-strike to reclaim the area. After regrouping UNSC forces, Forge is able to breach the Covenant energy shield and retake Alpha Base. With no rest for the weary, Forge is tasked with scouting the area and watches on as the Covenant Arbiter, under pressure from the Hierarchs, orders the Forerunner relic opened. Back on the Spirit of Fire, Anders insists on going down to the planet to test her theories on what they've uncovered, and Cutter agrees, however, warns Anders that she will be pulled out at the first sign of danger. Regret, one of the Hierarchs of the Covenant, orders the Arbiter to protect what they've learned by detonating explosives to destroy the relic. Alpha Base is still in lockdown protocol. However, once the base is rebuilt, Forge is able to stage an assault on the Covenant dig site and demolish the detonator before it can be used. Forge escorts Anders inside of the relic, where she's able to activate the main terminal, which projects a star map around them. It's at this point the Covenant spring their ambush and elites uncloak and engage the group. Reinforcements arrive in the form of 2 grizzly tanks dropped in from the Spirit of Fire. The tanks are able to rendezvous with Forge's group, and despite some obstacles, in the form of grunts blowing up one of the bridges along the escape route, are able to escort Forge and Anders to the extraction point. Safely back on board the Spirit of Fire, Anders and Cutter discuss what she observed within the artifact. And despite the interruptions, she's certain the map was directing them to a second star system, which Serena confirms to be Arcadia Colony, notably a popular, yet mostly unexplored, holiday destination. Anders is confident they need to follow this lead, and Cutter agrees to redirect their efforts to Arcadia, despite their current orders to investigate Harvest. Arriving at Arcadia on February 9th, 2531, Anders' hunch pays off, as they're greeted by 2 Covenant vessels engaged with the UNSC fleet, which notably includes the Pillar of Autumn, which will be involved in the Halo incident in about 20 years' time. Although 1 Covenant vessel was destroyed, all of the UNSC fleet is either destroyed or badly damaged. This has given the 2nd Covenant ship access to the planet. This is confirmed when a distress signal is picked up from the surface as the spaceport is about to be overrun while still trying to evacuate civilians. Cutter hastily prepares to get troops on the ground to provide support. Forge hits the ground running and coordinates troops to protect the civilian transports until they're ready to depart, helping to rescue as many people as possible. Forge and his troops, now including the Spartan Red Team, are forced to retreat from the city as Covenant reinforcements arrive, and to keep a foothold on the planet, they set up a new base on the outskirts. Spartan Team Omega arrive shortly and assist in destroying the nearby Covenant stronghold before quickly moving on to their next mission. Forge is also hastily summoned to the bridge by Cutter to address the newest problem. A large shield dome has been set up by the Covenant, which is preventing any observation on their activities. After discussing their options, Anders suggests utilizing several superheated plasma beams to disrupt the shield to avoid accidentally destroying anything underneath which may be of interest. Borrowing some prototype plasma-based Rhino tanks from the Pillar of Autumn, Anders and Forge head down to coordinate the offensive. Once the Rhinos are in place and fire simultaneously, they're able to breach the shield and open the way for a targeted bombardment from the Spirit of Fire. Meanwhile, at the Apex site, the Arbiter vents his frustration to Regret. His task is to eliminate the human race, but he's sent to investigate ruins rather than taking a more direct approach. Regret enlightens the Arbiter to his plans to build a fleet larger than anything imaginable, utilizing the Forerunner technology that they've been chasing. Regret attempts to use the same kind of activation device Anders was able to operate back in the Relic on Harvest, but to no avail, which leads him to decide Anders may be of use to them and dispatches the Arbiter to bring her to him. Back with Forge, who is now investigating the area around where the energy shield was, his forces come under fire from an incomplete Scarab. Forge is able to take advantage of the Scarab's inability to move and take it down using a pincer maneuver to minimize the usefulness of its devastating laser. Now the Scarab has been dealt with, Forge and Anders continue to investigate the area. However, Anders is grabbed by the Arbiter. Forge attempts a rescue, but after a brief tussle, is about to be on the wrong end of the Arbiter's energy sword until Anders steps in and agrees to go quietly in exchange for Forge's life. Cutter hastily recalls his forces and after a brief discussion is convinced to follow Anders' signal before it is out of range. The Spirit of Fire arrives at an unknown planet in pursuit of Anders. Even Serena can't shed any light on where they find themselves, although is able to confirm the ship they followed is down on the planet's surface, and Forge is dispatched to establish a foothold on the planet. While attempting to set up a base of operations, Forge and his troops are attacked by the Flood. This is the undocumented first encounter the UNSC has had with the parasitic life forms, however they quickly learn that they are not friendly and exist only to consume other sentient life. Forge is able to rendezvous with Spartan Red Team, drive back the Flood, and set up a base of operations. Back with the Covenant, Anders is delivered to Regret. When the Arbiter is informed the Spirit of Fire is closing in on the entrance portal. Regret hastily retreats to High Charity, as the Arbiter demands the destruction of the human ship. On board the Spirit of Fire, as they arrive at their destination, Serena initiates a scan and intercepts a message, of which she is able to relay the words docking and cleansing before a crater opens in the planet's surface below them, and sentinels emerge from within to address the Flood in the vicinity, which unfortunately are located primarily on the hull of the Spirit of Fire. The ship is locked in a field and pulled down into the opening. Cutter orders Serena to hold the ship for as long as possible and orders for all troops to get back on board. Forge is tasked with assisting all units with evac from the surface and is able to make sure everyone makes it back on board safely before the ship is pulled into the planet's interior. As the ship traverses the interior, it's guided through a docking system, which is cleansing the ship of the Flood infestation. By Forge's efforts and the cleansing waves passing over the ship, the Spirit of Fire is quickly free of the Flood and is allowed into the interior of the massive Forerunner shield world, and is met immediately by a Covenant vessel. The crew fend off attacks from the Covenant forces while utilizing Cyclops exoskeletons to repair the ship. Whilst repairs are being completed, the Arbiter forces Anders to activate the Apex site, which reveals a massive fleet of Forerunner warships that the Covenant intend to use to win the war. As the Arbiter and his forces are in awe of their newfound fleet, Anders finds the chance to escape and teleports down to the planet's surface. Her arrival awakens some nearby Flood, however the good sergeant happens to reach Anders and intercept the Flood before they're able to attack. Forge escorts the Professor to an evac beacon and remains on the surface to lock down the position, receiving some welcome reinforcements in the form of Red Team. Once Forge has secured a footing on the surface, Anders fills Cutter in on her plan to stop the Covenant. by overloading the ship's FTL, or faster than light reactor. They will set off a chain reaction within the Sun and destroy the Forerunner fleet before the Covenant can make use of it. Although this is a tough call, Cutter agrees to this plan, being the best chance that they've got to give humanity hope for the future. When the FTL drive's transports are shot down, Forge is able to escort the drive along the ground to the target site, where it is prepped to explode. Unfortunately for Forge and company, the Arbiter and his elite guards arrive on the scene to make things difficult. Red Team are able to take down the guards, and Forge wins his rematch with the Arbiter, eventually killing him with his own energy sword. However, the FTL drive is damaged in the skirmish, meaning that someone now needs to stay behind to manually detonate it. Forge volunteers to take on this role, telling the Spartans that he thinks they will all be needed in the war to come. The Spirit of Fire's escape route is blocked by an energy shield, which needs deactivating by triggering 6 release mechanisms in a precise order. The crew pull together, open up the escape route, and Cutter gives Forge the signal to blow the core. As the Sun goes supernova, Cutter has the ship perform the classic slingshot around the Sun maneuver to build up enough speed to outrun the expanding gravity field and escape the blast radius. Once the ship is safe, as they now have no way back to UNSC space with their FTL drive gone, the crew are put into cryosleep on March 11th, 2531. Once he's closed Anders' cryopod, Cutter closes a final empty pod belonging to Forge and nods in a silent mark of respect for the sacrifices of the good sergeant. The ship sets off on its long journey home without its FTL drive. That brings us to the end of the Halo Wars story. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like and subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss the next installment in the Halo series, Halo Reach.